Talented, yet overlooked. Gifted, but then forgotten. These are the stories of the unsung heroes of Maori music.
It's like a scientist of music, but with feel and groove and passion.
I think without doubt he's got to be the best guitar player in the country.
Even fellow singers, we all look up to Dixon. You don't have to be a guitarist to be a fan of Dixon Nacey.
You can put him in any genre of music and he'll kill it.
The Cook Islands are home to a rich culture of music and dance that is second to none. Here the sound of the ukulele reverberates over crystal waters, while the rhythmic beating of pāte is the heartbeat of tradition. This cluster of islands in the heart of the South Pacific is home to Aotearoa's closest whanaunga, the Maori of the Cook Islands. Throughout history, they have come to our shores bringing with them their unique culture and talents. Descending from this rich culture is Dixon Nacey, arguably one of the best guitarists in Aotearoa at this time.
My mother's family is Cook Island, they're Mangayan, and there's also links through to Raro as well. My grandfather, Papa Tuakana Moiroa, who's a minister in the Cooks, he had 11 children and a couple of feeding children, you know, so it was a big family, so my mum was like second to last out in that lot.
As is the way with many Polynesian whānau, music was incorporated into everyday life.
The house would always be full and always be buzzing, always be alive with just with life and lots of music. There was always music playing, or there was the ukes were out and the guitars.
There's a lot of influence from church because my dad was a minister. It was just everywhere, really.
Dixon gravitated towards music at a young age, seeking musical knowledge wherever it could be found.
And so I found this old guitar, but it only had 2 strings on it, you know, and I would lay it across my lap and just play it like kind of upside down, you know, like Ben Harper styles, and just worked out bits and pieces of songs that they'd play or stuff that was on the stereo that they'd be partying out to, you know.
I actually remember the first song that I taught him was the House of the Rising Sun, and I think it kind of stemmed from there, his passion for music.
But as Dixon's musical skills developed, so too did his appetite for more knowledge. Recognising his thirst, his family sought out new ways to support his growth.
My aunt and uncle, who were really avid blues fans, they bought me a book by a company called Soodlam, and it came with a cassette tape, back in those days. And yeah, I just loved it. This was like a solid thing that said, hey, you know, if you like this style of music, just spend a bit of time with it in this book and see what happens. Yeah, that was the first structured thing that I was like really starting to learn, rather than just picking stuff up by ear or mum sitting down and showing me House of the Rising Sun, or, you know.
I can recall, I think he was a teenager, and, you know, to spend time in his bedroom, that's all we heard him, was just playing on the guitar, and that was it, really.
By the time he was a teenager, Dixon had already mastered Cook Island music and the blues. But it wasn't until he enrolled at Avondale College that his musical education really began. At that time, a young teacher had just begun an in-school music program that would launch the careers of dozens of top local musicians. He was Paul Norman, and through his inspiring program, Dixon would find the musical challenge he craved.
He used to sort of sit and jam on acoustic guitar. And you can see kids with a talent. I mean, whether it's looking at the way they play, just their hand technique, the dexterity around there, they got the coordination, they got the ears and stuff, and he had that straight away. It was a real happy kind of like little miracle right there, you know, that this great teacher, this great mentor, and this great enthusiastic, passionate musician should happen to also enter into my life just as I picked up the guitar.
A mutual respect was born. Recognising his student's talent, Paul offered Dixon the opportunity to add another feather to his growing musical repertoire, jazz.
And I just sort of pulled Dixon into a jazz combo rehearsal. He'd never played jazz before. And straight away the feel, everything was just there. He swung like he'd been playing it for years. It was insane. He didn't have a guitar at home, not an electric guitar anyway, so I lent him the school guitar and gave the guy a whole lot of albums, and I just gave it to him and he just learned the whole album, everything on there, just like thirsty. And just, but just get his head right into the whole thing, learn everything on there, and then ask for some more, you know, just a sponge.
For Dixon, Paul's presence in his life began to open up a new world of opportunity.
When Paul Norman came along, who gave me a real book, who gave me albums to listen to, who gave me, you know, a foot up my butt so that I'd keep on working. When all that started to sort of happen, that's when I realised that it was going to be okay to play guitar, because, you know, when you're a kid, you don't really have an idea. I realised that, hey, maybe this is actually a way of earning money.
Throughout his time at Avondale College, Dixon soaked up as much knowledge as he could. Guest tutors, who also happened to be some of the top musicians in town, opened new musical doors for Dixon, and he began to delve into the world of funk. As college wound up, however, Dixon began to think of the future. Setting his sights offshore, he began planning to join his father, living in London.
In fact, we had a going away party for him, and he didn't even own his own guitar at that time. So we organised to get some donations from all the people that were going to be at the party, and I went out and bought him a Squire. So he had his own guitar, and we presented this to him at the going away party. He was just gobsmacked. He still got it, I see him playing it.
You know, who does that? You know, that's such a special thing, man. Go. And then the visa got rejected, and it got rejected twice. So I thought, man, that's a dead end.
It was a disappointing end to his English dreams. But as he picked himself up and looked to the future, music offered a helping hand.
Man, that guy must have just spent hours practicing at home. Hours practicing at home. He just took off.
Caught in limbo after his plans to move to London were shattered, Dixon was at a loss as to what to do next. It was at that point that fate introduced him to a fellow musician, Dave Munner, who offered him some timely advice.
Dave was like, okay, here's a guitar, okay, here's an amp. You just go away and practice, and you can use them for whatever, and I'm going to get us some gigs. A week later, he was driving us around, door knocking on restaurants and bars and just saying, hey man, you want these guys in, we'll play for some food. We'll play, you know, for $50. We played for our food, you know, that night, and then the next night we went out again, and we ended up getting a little residency at this place. And he said, okay, you might be doing this gig for dinner, but I guarantee you in a year, in 2 years, you'll be walking out of a gig and putting, you know, $500 in your back pocket. And I was laughing and thinking, whatever. And he was right.
A year later, with some performance experience under his belt, Dixon was ushered into the hottest local band, Kick. Teaming up with some other top-notch musicians, Dixon made an impact straight away.
As soon as I started playing, I thought, man, I said, this young guy on guitar is wicked. Crikey. Where's he from?
Kick was an instant hit on the Auckland scene.
Kick was a good band, man. It was a good covers band. 4-piece, there was good money too.
There was this real kind of status about, you know, that band back in those days. We did have a huge following. It was always packed.
They must have been the sort of best established pub covers band in Auckland for a long time. They had probably the best regular gig in town at the Armand and Crown for a long time. I tried to go and see them a couple of times, but it was so packed I couldn't get in.
We were packing out the Armand and Crown 3 nights a week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
The 90s was an exciting era for local music, and Dixon, still fresh out of school, found himself in the unique position of making a living from performing.
At the time, we were just making a buck, you know, and just playing covers, and I didn't see it as anything more than that. But now I've got guitarists coming up to me and say, hey man, I remember those days, and you know, you really inspired me to go on and play or whatever. I'm amazed, you know, I'm like, God, I wish I'd paid more attention and learned the songs properly.
And he was playing with Kick for, I don't know, it must have been like 10 years or something. And for a jazz musician to stick with one band for that long, you know, they can get bored because they're after that musical challenge all the time. But I think he just valued the fact he had a career as a musician. He understood the uniqueness and the privilege, really, that is.
Despite Kick's popularity, eventually Dixon decided to move on.
I found myself not paying enough attention to the rest of my musical life. I kind of was just so involved in the 3 nights a week playing, and I wasn't actually doing anything musically, you know, so that's what happened. It's like, okay, this is great, and the money's great, but I'm not kind of doing anything.
The drive for musical fulfillment led Dixon to team up once more with Patrick Coots to form the band Fijo Jam. Once again, the musicians found they had the winning formula.
Michelle Rounds was our vocalist, and she was Fijian, and so we were like Fiji, Fijoa, Fijo Jam. That's how that came about, that's how the name came about. Pat and I actually started the group up, and we got her involved, and then we got Max involved. We sucked them into this little gig down on High Street at a place called Debrett's.
Up to about 3 months was just like standing room only. But Dixon and Max, they just both shined, eh? Every single gig was a new experience. It was non-stop learning and non-stop excitement.
For Dixon, the band represented his first opportunity to really open up musically. Surrounded by great musicians, his own ability went from strength to strength.
You know, they were fantastic musicians. The jazz influence was there, and the complexity of their chords and arrangements, and just the understanding of harmony and structure and all those sort of things that you sort of study in jazz. And the soloing was a big element, of course, because they're all monsters, you know.
It was a chance for me to be a bit of a front man every now and then and play some stuff, do some, you know, crazy solos. But also it was a real melding of a great solid band sound where we created some good live music, but also started to compose and did some stuff that created a following.
I still get a lot of people in the street come up, hey, you haven't got any rehearsal tapes that you want to get rid of or I can buy, eh? It's amazing.
Fijo Jam continued to wow Auckland audiences for a number of years. Immersed in the jazz world, Dixon was continually growing as a musician. Then a random meeting in a music store with hip-hop artist King Kapisi introduced him to a new musical dimension, the world of hip-hop.
I was just playing on this guitar and he wandered in and was like, oh man, you know, do you want to come and play? And I was like, man, aren't you King Kapisi? I was like, yeah, I'll come and play.
He was playing all the jazzy chords, and I think at that time the Dilla, the Tribe Called Quest sound was in for me, the root sound. And they just had nice jazz chords in there. And I never heard anyone do it in New Zealand, Aotearoa, that make that sound yet. And I was like, oh, this guy can play it.
The biggest thing that came from that was hanging out with a musician who was experienced in doing original music and doing it really well. And he was a great writer and a great musician. And he had a real sense of individuality. You know, so when he wrote, his stuff was unique. It wasn't like, what's happening that's cool at the moment, oh, you got to sound like this guy. He was so into, no man, this is what I hear, this is what you guys play, and if we do it well, it's going to be successful.
It was another great union, and Dixon took to this new musical style with the same ease as he had with previous challenges.
We were doing a gig, Max Stowers was on the bass, Dixon was on the guitar. I was rapping away, and I turned around. And Dixon and Max had swapped instruments. And I was like, Max, yeah, I didn't know you could play the guitar. And Dixon, I didn't know you could play the bass. He's got multi-styles. He's got the rock style down. He's got the jazz style down. He's got the R&B style down. He does the flamenco type chords or riffs or runs as well. He's the most all-round guitar player that I know.
As Dixon's reputation on the live scene grew, he found himself in demand, playing with many of the top musicians in town, including Tama Waipara and songstress Annie Crummer.
Well, Annie Crummer I met through Tama Waipara. At one of the gigs, Annie Crummer comes in, Tama's like, oh, Annie's gonna sing. I was like, oh, you're kidding me, that's so cool. And anyway, she comes running straight up to me, and she'd heard that I was Cook Island, you know, I'd never met her, and she goes, hey, cuz, and gives me a big hug.
And I thought it was so cool that there was another cookie. I didn't know too many Cook Islanders as musicians. And of course, you know, when you find fellow cookies, you get together, you talk about their parents and how we may be connected. Then you get to work with him, and that's a whole nother gig, because that brother got skills. He has this way of making every other musician, regardless whether you're a fellow guitarist, but all the fellow musicians, we all levitate to him. Even if it's my gig, everyone go and ask him what do they do, but even I'll do that too. He is the man.
Although Dixon had reached the top of the local market, playing with many of the best musicians in town, he still felt unfulfilled. As he mastered yet another genre, he began to feel the time to step out with his own sound was coming.
Since Fijoa finished, he's gone on to do a lot of his own stuff, amazing stuff.
The experience of playing with solo artists had opened up an exciting new world to Dixon, and he found his creative direction changing.
When I was working with Caps, he just had this thing that he'd always say to me. I'd be like, oh man, I've made this new groove, and I'd email him this MP3, and he'd be like, oh, that's cool, man. Now, you know, you got to finish it, man. Hurry up, you know. It was always this thing of like, hurry up. Because as maybe a lot of musicians do, you stall, you know, you procrastinate, or you do things, all these things around the thing you need to be doing. And what he was saying was, just focus, you know, just do this thing, you know. Believe in yourself. You're good.
Motivated by the words of his friend, hurry up is exactly what Dixon decided to do.
So I started to write for an album, you know, and I did this one song called Flow. And around that time, I ended up hooking up with Uri Aumatangi, and he is an amazing Cook Island vocalist. I said, oh, you got to come and record this track. So we recorded this track. For me, it's a standout track of an album that we've created since. We basically started to write together, and we called that project ID.
With ID, Dixon was in his element, writing and recording their own original material. Then in 2006, he ventured back into jazz, where he met well-known double bassist Kevin Haynes.
Nathan booked me to do a gig, and this guy turns up, this guitar player, and I've never seen him before in my life. Dixon pulls this guitar out and he said, I've got this little arrangement. He said, do you reckon we might be able to do it? And he started to play and I thought, what the hell is this? It was just so astounding. I thought, where has this guy been all this time? I mean, heavens above, I've played with so many different people and there he was. I've never played with him before.
Teaming up with Ron Sampson, the three formed a jazz trio.
Ron Sampson, who's the head of the music department at the jazz school, he was like, let's record. And we recorded an album under the inventive title Sampson, Nacey, Haynes Trio. And that was my first album with my name on it, first album where I'd contributed compositions. For me, that was a stamp in the book, you know, pretty much a hallmark thing to have done.
The Sampson, Nacey, Haynes trio was a real meeting of musical minds, and together they achieved the level of playing that Dixon had craved.
That group was real special because it wasn't a drummer playing drums and a bass player playing bass and a guitarist playing guitar. We mixed it and we played together as a group. So it was supposed to be a really sort of interwoven melding of musical ideas and minds.
I've never ever played in such a democratic band in all my life. It sometimes takes a bit longer to do things because we have so many discussions about how we're going to do it.
Having played across such a broad range of genres, Dixon decided that it was time to offer his experience to the next generation of musicians. Since he took up teaching at the Excel School of Performing Arts in 2000, many of the artists he worked with have gone on to become successful in their own right.
I remember one of our first lessons we had trying to teach me the basic scales, and you know, me being a cheeky Samoan and all, you know, trying to suss them out whether this guy's the man or not. Oh, are you able to play the scale a little bit faster, or can the scale go on to another scale? Being real cheeky and stuff, eh? And then the man was just, oh, yeah, you can. But he was like, oh man, buzzing, eh? And tell me how you keep your heart. There's one song in particular, I recorded it at Excel. Man, I laid down all the guitar and the bass and stuff for it, and I just got Dixon to come in. Man, shucks, he just blew me away, eh? Just one take, just the melodies that he picked, man, just was straight from heaven, man, honestly.
Although things are still moving forward for Dixon, he finds these days that his priorities have changed.
In 2006, I had my first boy, Luca, and so when that happened, you know, life changes. You just got to put things down and be a father, you know. And now I've got another boy, Xavier, and so things change, and we had to put that on hold. Now the boys are getting a little bit older, I'm wanting to pick it back up again, so we've been rehearsing. We've just recently done a couple of gigs under the ID moniker, you know, but we'll see what happens. Watch this space, because I think we'll definitely do something exciting. So to Bill, yep, I'm hurrying up, 8 years later.
As someone who has moved between genres and musical worlds easily, Dixon has a simple mantra that drives him.
Just be open as a person, you know. Oh, that person, oh, they're Muslim, oh, I don't like them, you know. Be open. How do you know you don't like them? You don't even know the person. The same thing in music, you know. Oh, country music, oh, yeah, no, country music sucks. How do you know? How much country music have you played? How much country music have you even listened to? Have you even been to where country music originated from? Have you read about it? You know, how much do you really know about these things before you go, handbrake on, I don't like it?
Today, Dixon is still playing with his band ID and also the Sampson, Nacey, Haynes trio. The latter have just released their second album. Based in Auckland, his 18-year career has seen him perform with some of the top artists across every genre and earned him a reputation as one of the most versatile musicians in the country. With his exceptional work ethic and monstrous talent, Dixon Nacey is always in demand as one of the genuine giants of the New Zealand music industry.
He mea tau toko nā te manga.